I just got back from North Carolina State University's Turfgrass field day. We went over plant breeding, how they determine the best varieties. I'm actually going to show you how they compare side by side these varieties for the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program. Talked a lot about that on the channel as far as seed selection. We're going to talk about that here. I'm going to show you a sprayer, really neat, that actually uses artificial intelligence to spot spray turf areas as it goes over it. It's absolutely incredible technology. We're also going to talk about efficacy of pre-emergent herbicides for both cool and warm season grasses. We're going to talk about fungicide applications and how to make that the most efficient possible and how that works better for both cool and warm season grasses. We're going to talk about annua control and what we can do in both warm and cool season grasses. All of that was balled up in the one-day tour that I did in North Carolina State University's Lake Wheeler Turfgrass Research Facility. So all that's going to be in this video. So let's get started. These are pretty neat. They about every university, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, North Carolina State University has these field days where they go over all the research that's been done over the last year on their facilities. Now officially registered. I got my alumni badge, and here's all the distributors. They've got irrigation people here. They got turf people here. They've got sod farms, various things. They've got a few other distributors. So anyway, that's sort of what goes on. It gives you a vibe of what else other than the turfgrass research that goes on at these fairs. And these are all open to the public. You can come here, check this out if you're really an enthusiast, and kind of get a vibe for what they do with turfgrass research. It's actually pretty fun. Behind me is a putting green. You can see 3 more in the background, and then another one over here where they're evaluating various things on putting greens. Talk a lot on the channel about the NTEP trials, the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program. This is actually the NC State's tall fescue evaluation on all these are, look at this. These are all different varieties of tall fescue that they are evaluating here at the Lake Wheeler Turfgrass facility here at NC State. What they'll do is they'll look at these and they'll evaluate them on quality, texture, color, and most of these up here, well, you can see some subtle differences in color here between this variety, this one, and that's how they evaluate them. See how it gets darker? Look at this, the difference between this one and this one. That's how they evaluate them, and then they rate them based on their quality. Here's an NTEP Kentucky bluegrass trial, and this is actually a little bit more obvious than the tall fescues. You can see the differences in color and somewhat in the texture, but definitely in color and density. So they grow these side by side, all these varieties, and they evaluate them on those characteristics. Now, there again, when you look at different trials, and you can see these here, some of these, most of these are just A216. They usually have some fancy number on them. What those are varieties that a breeder, could be Barnberg, could be Seed Research, etc. There's several breeders around the country that they're evaluating if they want to really put the money behind that particular variety and actually make it commercially available. So when you see NTEP trials and there's some weird name on it, that's what it is. So that's what it looks like in the field studies for the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program. Now, what does that mean to you? We are coming up on overseeding season. And there's a reason why I set the camera up here. As you can see, this is what it looks like right now on August 15th of 2025. And this is what it looked like on August 28th, 2024. I redid this yard in my overseeding video. You can catch it right here. I'll be doing some revisions to this video, but this is the nuts and bolts and exactly how I redid this yard. So that way you can see how it worked. I have a mower blade in there that actually not only removes the bad vegetation and weeds, it also prepares a seed bed as well. I go over some seed varieties and seed species in that, but I'm going to go over a few more right now with the latest information that I have on selecting the best quality for your yard. Now, I do have an Amazon storefront. And I do have a seed list on an Amazon storefront. To my Amazon storefront, you will see several ideas lists. It could be herbicide, could be fungicide, could be post-emergent herbicides, pre-emergent herbicides, and I do have the seed list. However, there is also Twin City Seed that you can go directly to and purchase seed from there as well. As far as top quality tall fescue, I think the Resilience 2 tall fescue is pretty much top of the mark. It has, and you can see on the NTEP trials the code that I gave you, it's Midnight and Xanadu. Midnight is probably the top tall grass variety. Xanadu always scores in the top 5% or in the top 5 on the list. They have a unique characteristic on those varieties because tall fescue is a bunch type grass, meaning it germinates from one spot and then it just simply comes up from that spot and fills in, which is a problem with rye and tall fescue. It doesn't really have that horizontal growth that you like in bluegrass, for example, or bent grass, or definitely the warm season grasses like Bermuda grass, St. Augustine, etc. But with these new tall fescue varieties, like Midnight and Xanadu, they actually have a rhizome in them like bluegrass does, and it actually helps it go underneath the ground. So it's a reproductive structure, goes underneath the ground and actually pops up the side of it and actually fills in better. So these improved tall fescue varieties, there again, you saw how they differ in color. They also have different characteristics in the grass themselves that's actually been breeded into, and it makes them superior varieties. So that resilience to tall fescue is the direction I would send you. On bluegrass, you got 2 ones. You got one, it's a Barnberg. Okay, that is an HGT bluegrass blend. Okay, it has Barvet and Basardi in it. Those are the top 2. It has also, I think it has also 2 other varieties in it, but the Barvet and the Basardi are really almost 1 and 2 as far as the top bluegrass varieties on NTEP trials. Now, the Barnberg will need to be put out at 2 to 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Generally, on bluegrass, you'll put it out at 1 to 2 because that seed is smaller. The difference is the Barnberg coats their seed with a coating that's supposed to hold water longer and better on the storefront, whichever you want to do, is Blue Ending. That is a blend. There you can see on the NTEP trials, Basardi, Bombay, Blue Gem, Midnight, and Cloud. So those are my seed recommendations for you guys as far as cool season grasses based on those NTEP trials. Set this up. This is a sprayer that goes on the back of a tractor that actually golf course superintendents, other turf professionals could use. Not really applicable to homeowners, but I thought this was neat. It actually uses AI to scan the ground, identifies the weed, and actually sprays it. Check this. Down the nozzles are going. Now, this is going to be computer regulated, so he can go as fast and slow as he wants. I'm sure it is. And it will spray the proper amount of volume out. So, following this guy right behind it. Now you can, you can see how it lights up. That's okay. There, it just sprayed that area right there. That's there, right there's what it did. That is freaking cool. Holy crap. There's another spot that it just treated it and detected that nut sedge and treated it. Here's another boom. Boom. Yeah. It's like there's another one. It is only training the nut sedge in that area. Now, granted, I'm kind of curious how this thing will identify, because nut sedge is fairly easily identifiable, but I'll just give you see, I just sprayed that area. Spray these areas back here. That's all it did, was that where the weeds were. So you could probably, if you look at it, particularly golf course applications and things of that nature, wouldn't work for fungicides, in my opinion. You really need to spray the whole area. But if you really were doing a lot of herbicide applications, would be labor intensive, but I'm trying to think of how you would use this. Let me get my camera right. Trying to think of how you would use this. So, you could potentially run it over your fairways, I don't know, once every 3 weeks and not do a pre-emergent application? Yeah. Kind of interesting, though. Here's a study on El Toro zoysia grass mowing at different heights. They've got 1.5. It goes clear up to, looks like almost 3.5 inches. So it goes up in 1/4 inch intervals at each little sign here. So just get an evaluation of how the quality reacts and how the turfgrass behaves, this variety, the El Toro variety, at different mowing heights. My visit has inspired me to use the channel to contribute to turfgrass research. If you scan this QR code with your mobile device while you're watching on television, it will take you to my last video. Then you can scroll down, find the super thanks, and contribute what you would like to contribute to turfgrass research. Part of the proceeds go to the channel, part of the proceeds go to the NC State Turfgrass Research. For those of you on mobile device, iPad or computer, you can simply scroll down the exact same way the folks did with the QR code, hit the super thanks button, and contribute what you would like to see with the super things. And I appreciate the support. They did a study on pre-emergent efficacy. Now, they do have the control, meaning there is no treatment there. Whenever you see a study, you will see control. That means no treatment. And then here they have prodiamine, which is barricade, and you can see how well that did, obviously, to the difference to the control. They also use indaziflam, which all you guys down south, particularly you Texas guys, Arizona guys, are getting pretty high on spectacle flow. That's the active ingredient in spectacle flow. Then they also are looking at simazine here as well, and another rate of indaziflam, and then another rate of simazine, and then they also have a prodiamine. Now, the prodiamine they have here is they also have the dates that they're looking at too. When's the best time to put it out? March 5th on the prodiamine, February 5th on simazine, February 5th on indaziflam. There again, we're in Raleigh, so we're just outside of Raleigh. March 5th application. So they're looking at different times when you're putting it out and how well the efficacy is on crabgrass. Now, two of the things they did come up with, but that I found interesting. Indaziflam actually on sandier soils can, and simazine definitely can, actually get washed down into the root zone, further into the soil, and affect its efficacy. So if you have a sandy soil, that's something to keep in mind, that your spectacle flow may not work as well, particularly you guys that are using in Florida, as it's built in some of the places in Texas where you may have a clay or heavy clay soil, where you're not having so much infiltration. So do keep that in mind. So it's not the where-all be-all. And the prodiamine, here they've got February 5th application at 1.1 pounds per acre is what they looked at. Actually looks pretty doggone good. So your cost per acre, I've actually done the math, on spectacle flow is typically lower. However, you got that huge price tag of the product. I think it's over $1,000. That's the smallest container you can find it in. Very low rate. So that kind of gives you an idea of how they look at efficacy of pesticides. In this particular case of pre-emergent herbicides, that is how they determine how well they're working. One of the things I asked was about poa control, particularly with cool season grass. Warm season grass, guys, you may not know. You really need to get your pre-emergent out, regardless of what you use, prior to the soil temperatures at 2 inches deep, getting below 70 degrees. Once it gets below 70 degrees, anywhere from 50 to 70% of your poa will germinate between that point, whenever that is, and November. So if you get out your pre-emergent herbicide before that time, and that's probably going to be, right now, I'm in zone B, I think, or A. Can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, I just looked, and today's August 15th. Just about everybody else is about 86 degrees or more. So you're looking at ballpark of around that probably mid-September is when you need to get that out prior to. So what about cool season grass, guys? I asked them about mesotrione. Mesotrione is a pre-emergent herbicide, torsidity, tenacity, the Sublime product I've talked about, and also Scott's for seeding. That actually has pre-emergent activity on poa as well. You can't put it on Bermuda grass because it will actually control Bermuda grass, but you can put it on any cool season grass and seed that same day. So you're looking into that time frame, that window of early to mid-September. You go out with that mesotrione product and put it on, then seed afterwards. You can put it on any time before. You can only go 2 applications with tenacity for the year at the maximum rate, 8 ounces per acre. Okay? Now, if you go 5 ounces, that can go up a little bit more. You can go to like 2.5 or something like that. I think it's 16 ounces per acre is the maximum on torsidity and tenacity. But you put it out a year. I think these Scott's for seeding, please check the label on. In fact, I'll put it right here of what your maximum times you can put it out at the maximum rate for each. But you can go ahead and put it out when soil temperatures get to 70. That might, and I think it will, coincide. Let's say it's 71, 72, 73 degrees. Check it with a soil thermometer. You go out with torsidity, tenacity, then pre-germinate your seed, which is what I'm going to go over in my next seeding video. Here's my seeding video on pre-germination. 3 days later, let's check this patch that I did. A little bit of editing here, but I wanted to see and give you guys an idea of how quickly this can work. See right in here? Put your torsidity, tenacity, or Scott's for seeding out. Seed that same day. pre-germinate your seed, you should get tall fescue to pop within 3 to 5 days. Then it needs to be at the second mowing, or I think it's 4 weeks, whichever is longer. Then you can follow up with another application of Tor seed tenacity, and I think that's Scott's for seeding or the Sublime. I'll clarify it here. So that will give you as much as about 6 weeks first. Then let's say go out at half rate, gives you maybe 4 more weeks. Then you can go out and actually put your pre-emergent herbicide out, and that should do a pretty good job of controlling annua in a lot of the cool season yards. Unfortunately, the rain did not cooperate. We actually got rain, which is rare in the Raleigh area in this time of year. So I actually took some of the notes from the turf book that they gave out to us. It shows all the studies in it, and you can get that on the turf files. Leave a QR code to the turf files here if you want to check out more about what I'm talking about. Now, one thing they did look at is growing Kentucky bluegrass in zone 8A, USDA hardiness zones. I'll give you a picture here of what I mean by that. USDA hardiness zones is basically distinguishes the average. It takes the average temperature of that particular area of the country and puts it in a plant hardiness zone, and that determines what you can and cannot grow there. Okay, for example, you can't grow a banana tree in Massachusetts. It's just not going to happen, right? So that's the kind of thing that it does. And I'll leave a QR code if you guys want to check out. And I'll leave all these QR codes in the description and comments. You want to check it out. It's easier to do the QR code if you're watching on TV. So anyway, USDA plant hardiness zones. Basically, zone 8A is where Raleigh is south. That's Raleigh, North Carolina. And they're really finding that it is extraordinarily difficult to grow Kentucky bluegrass in the Piedmont area, anywhere from area 8A south. It's just too doggone hard is what they're trying. And they tried everything they could. So what I do recommend, if you guys are looking for season-long color, is go ahead and look, at going out with overseeding ryegrass and Bermuda grass. I actually did that in the golf, actually in the News Golf Club. We did that, I think the first year I was there. We tried that. Worked out pretty good for a season-long color, or flat out put tall fescue. And that's what I have here in my yard, Bermuda on the sides and tall fescue in the back. But Kentucky bluegrass, and I generally do, for most homeowners, do recommend putting in tall fescue in your yard, unless you're really wanting to keep up with it. The bluegrass is absolutely beautiful. It gives you great stripes, but it's less drought tolerance, less disease tolerant, and it's just a harder grass to grow. So the tall fescue actually does pretty well as you get further down in zones. And I would say probably zone 10 after that, you're really pushing as far as tall fescue. Anyway. Now, as far as fungus in tall fescue, primarily you're looking at gray leaf spot. That looks like this. I actually took a picture of it right there when I was sitting right beside the research plots. This is actually a presentation I got to. I didn't film these presentations because they didn't. I have to ask for permission for everybody, and that's why I just didn't film them and put them out there. Plus, it's more of a summary. It'd be an hour too long video, and I don't think you guys are into that. They are finding that gray leaf spot is primarily what you're looking into. Now, I have had on my disease video, I have had guys ask me, can I mix fungicides? Of course you can. Though you don't want to put a propiconazole out with a thiophanate methyl. Look at my disease video. It tells you why, because basically they go after the same thing. What you would want to mix, and what they found for a gray leaf spot, for example, in tall fescue, is mixing anoxystrobin with a propiconazole product gives you excellent control of gray leaf spot. You actually need to do that. You actually need to mix your anoxystrobin with either thiophanate methyl or propiconazole. All three are labeled for homeowner application. You can put it on yourself. The Jonathan Green product that I have on my Amazon storefront is a thiophanate methyl, same active ingredient as in the 3336, but you can legally put it out in your yard as a homeowner. Zoysia patch and spring dead spot in Bermuda grass. These are two different pathogens. However, they have just about the same cure, if you will, and you'll put it out at the same time. This is something I did not realize. Now, I have treated for spring dead spot in my Yukon yard here in the north. Spring dead spot, primarily, it is a fungus that attacks your Bermuda grass in the fall and essentially dies from the cold because it's weakened by the attack, if you will, of that fungus. Zoysia patch attacks the fungus. They were saying that it goes into the lower parts of the plant, kills it underneath, and it'll die, and you'll see it in the fall, and you also obviously see it in spring. Big thing with that, and I've said this about all warm season grasses, those of you who go into dormancy, do not put nitrogen out on those grasses 6 weeks prior to dormancy. It's one of the things that will make it worse. Also, if you put out nitrogen you need to put out your nitrogen applications 3 weeks after spring green up. That is not only for environmental reasons and your wallet, because you're putting out, really, if you put out fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer on grass that is semi-dormant, it's not going to absorb it. And it's going to be a waste of time. And then you're going to think, well, heck, I just put a pound of nitrogen. Now why isn't it growing? Because it didn't absorb it because it's not out of dormancy yet. And then also it'll leach, run off, and whatever else. And you're just basically putting your wallet down, either further down in the ground, it's not getting into the plant where you want it. So that's one of the things you can, cultural practices, if you will, fertility practices of not to do that within 6 weeks prior to dormancy, or 3 weeks, put your nitrogen application 3 weeks after spring green up. Now, as far as fungicide applications, this is something I did not realize. I knew I was treating in October for, however, that might be a tad late. Maybe not. I don't know. You really need to base it on temperature. I've always done mine. If I've done it, it's rare. I had a golf course in Louisville, Kentucky. It's not mine. It was a colleague of mine that had a golf course in Louisville, Kentucky, and he had zoysia. And he went out, I'm thinking early October with PCNB, I think. It's not labeled for home lawn use, but nevertheless, he put his zoysia patch application out in early October. Might have been a hair late. You want to put out your spring dead spot or your zoysia patch application fungicide when those soil temperatures start getting below 75. So about that same time, maybe a hair earlier than your pre-emergent application for winter weeds, if you will, particularly Poania, you need to put out your fungicide applications. Now, what they are recommending is anoxystrobin, which is basically Heritage. I do have these on my Amazon storefront. And that is also Scotch Disease EX, anoxystrobin, same active ingredient. There's Headway. That's one that I haven't used or recommended that much. And that is basically a mixture of propiconazole and anoxystrobin is the Headway. I don't have that on my Amazon storefront. I think personally what you could probably do is go out with a Scotch EX, or if you are using, I would go out with the Scotch EX product because you're not going to need that much on warm season grasses where you're going to have to get a jug of anoxystrobin and put it out. I think your best move is go ahead and put it out. Scott's Disease EX, which is anoxystrobin, and then go out with a the propiconazole product right here. BioAdvance. There we go. BioAdvance propiconazole, and put those out the same day. That's basically Headway mixed up because propiconazole and anoxystrobin mixed. So anyway, there's that. Propiconazole they have found is good control. However, the Headway, the mixture of anoxystrobin and propiconazole is they found that to be the best on both zoysia patch and spring dead spot in Bermuda. And there's, of course, they also have 3336 they evaluated on here, and it does not do very well. If you're going out the Jonathan Green product, it does not do very well on spring dead spot or zoysia patch. So stick with propiconazole or anoxystrobin. I'd go out with the Disease EX or that barricade, the BioAdvance product at the same time on the same day. And that way you're getting equal to Headway instead of buying a big bag of Headway, unless you have a huge lawn. And you can probably find that about anywhere online if you have a big lawn. So anyway, that's as far as spring dead spot and zoysia patch. That pretty much sums it up. It was a bit of a hodgepodge, but it was an opportunity to give you guys what goes on at these universities as far as turfgrass research and how they evaluate and the kind of facilities that they have. The North Carolina State University facility, actually, they built it just right after right after graduated. It was actually close to campus when I was there. It's probably in the neighborhood of 30 years old by now, I think. But anyway, and I got to go back. I got to go Prestonwood Country Club. That's where I was actually working when I was in NC State. My wife bought me a shirt, which was pretty cool. So I get to go back a little bit and check things out and go back to Raleigh. It's the first time, believe it or not, I've been on campus since my final exam. So trees had grown up and everything else. So, and it was nice. I got to talk to a couple people who knew some of the professors who are now no longer with us, some of them. And so it was a bit of a homecoming for me. So anyway, it was a bit of a lap at the end of a career. So I was happy to go back there and see folks. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. I like helping you guys. It was good to be back and looking forward to going back next year. And hopefully we won't get rained out. So anyway, I'm agronomist Greg Phillips, and I hope I hadn't complicated you with all this stuff, but I do like for you to know the greatest in research and give you an idea of what we do or what they do to help us get the goals that we have. And I hope I can be a part of that for you. Anyway, I'm agronomist Greg Phillips. Thanks for watching.